You're listening to the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM's Progress.
And welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. We're live here Mueller Wednesday, my friend, July 24th. We had Robert Mueller testify before two congressional committees, and the focus was different in both. I will tell you what we did hear and what we didn't hear. What I wanted to hear was Robert Mueller say this. Let's hear clip one.
Should go right to fucking jail! The son of a bitch is guilty! That man is a slime! He is a slime! If he's allowed to go free, then something really wrong is going on. Mr. Kirkland, you are out of order! You're out of order! You're out of order! The whole trial is out of order! They're out of order!
That's what I wanted. I wanted an Al Pacino impression from Injustice for All with Robert Mueller just freaking out. And they go, what do you think of Trump? He goes, he should go right to jail. He's guilty. We know he's guilty. There's no doubt about it. But what did happen? Some things I did want to happen. On Monday, if you happen to listen, I was on with Elliot Williams here. And Sunday on Reverend Al Sharpton show on MSNBC, we talked about this. And he said, what do you want to see? And I said, the number one thing was utterly destroy the idea that Donald Trump is exonerated. And that happened in the first minute of the first hearing at 8:31 a.m. this morning. And I think that is great. It is over the idea that he's exonerated. Is he guilty of a crime where he can be convicted? That's a different discussion. But is it over that he can walk around and say he's exonerated? Yes. For anybody who watched the testimony, if you read the report before, you knew he was not exonerated. But here it is, Gerald Nadler. And again, what I'm going to do is cover in this first hour the obstruction. I'll play some clips from the first hearing. There was two hearings, one at 8:30 this morning, and House Judiciary Committee focused exclusively on obstruction of justice charges. And then the second hearing was in House Intel Committee with the chair Adam Schiff there, and that was all on Russian interference. It was a shorter hearing. I think it actually is the more compelling. Donald Trump is not a patriotic American, as clearly when you hear Robert Mueller, what he says that you're unpatriotic if you accept the help of a foreign country. Donald Trump has done that. Now, Robert Mueller did not say Donald Trump is unpatriotic. He did say it is unpatriotic to accept help from a foreign country like that. So clearly, that's what he's saying about Donald Trump. But let's hear first. Here's Gerald Nadler. Here's probably the most important clip from hearing number one. Clip number two, please.
You wrote, quote, if we had confidence after a thorough investigation of the facts that the president clearly did not commit obstruction of justice, we would so state. Based on the facts and the applicable legal standards, however, we are unable to reach that judgment, close quote. Now, does that say there was no obstruction?
No.
So the report did not conclude that he did not commit obstruction of justice. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And what about total exoneration? Did you actually totally exonerate the president?
No.
Now, in fact, your report expressly states that it does not exonerate the president.
It does.
And your investigation actually found, quote, multiple acts by the president that were capable of exerting undue influence over law enforcement investigations, including the Russian interference and obstruction investigations. Is that correct?
Correct.
So there you go. That the idea of no obstruction is a myth. It is something from like a Harry Potter novel, let's say. It's not in the real world. Donald Trump is not exonerated, and there's been no determination he did not obstruct justice. I think the reason the first test hearing was less compelling for people is that it's a very analytical legal argument about what's obstruction and what not. You look at the facts and you look at the federal statute and you try to apply the two, and it seems like a courtroom setting. The second one and we'll cover that more in the second hour, play a bunch of clips, in Intel is viscerally moving because you're hearing about Donald Trump accepting the help of Russia. You hear the details of how Russia attacked our election, and they all did it, as Mueller testified, to help one person, Donald J. Trump. But I want to go through the first part here so we're all on the same page. We know analytically from a legal point of view what happened here. Before I play a few clips, I want to give you a preface of the federal statute that deals with obstruction of justice. And that's what a lot of members of the House Judiciary Committee are lawyers. Some are former prosecutors. And it may have seemed a little strange what they were doing in certain cases. They were laying the groundwork for the elements for the federal statute for obstruction of justice. That's what they were doing. Without, in some cases, Ted Lieu did it really like here's step 1, 2, and 3. And he tried to get Mueller at the end to go, Trump's guilty, but he wouldn't go that far. And that's what I think aggravated certain people. But just so you know, this won't be a law class, but If you're following along at home, turn to 18 U.S. Code Section 1503. And essentially, for a person to be convicted of obstruction of justice, and there's various statutes of that, but the general rule is that the person has to be aware there's a proceeding pending, that there must be a connection between their attempt to obstruct justice and that proceeding, and third, corrupt intent to obstruct the proceeding. And the term is corruptly, and that simply means an improper basis. Like corruptly would be an improper basis. I'm trying to obstruct an investigation so they don't find out what I did wrong. That's the quintessential way of showing a corrupt intent. Like I try to block the investigation because I knew they were going to find out I'm a criminal. So in this case, there's no doubt Donald Trump knew there was a proceeding going on. It was very public what was going on with Robert Mueller and his investigation. Number two, you have to get into the connection between what Trump was doing and the actual investigation. And third, did Trump have a corrupt intent? And that's what they were going at, a lot of them here. And one point I really want to point out, and some of the former prosecutors did on that panel, to be guilty of obstruction of justice. Now, the Republicans are making a big deal that Mueller testified his investigation was not impeded. It was not obstructed. That's not the standard. Just so it's 100% clear, you are criminally responsible. You've committed a felony if you only, and I'm reading right from the statute, you endeavor to obstruct justice. That means you attempt to obstruct justice. And if all the other elements are there and you attempted, but you failed like Trump did, but he tried to, it's still a felony. And I think that's the hardest thing for people, just normal people, to go like, well, he may have tried, but he didn't succeed. It's still the federal statute I'm reading right here, endeavors to influence, obstruct, or impede. So now knowing that, I'm going to play a few short clips. We're not going to do legal craziness here. I want to get your real human reaction to this stuff. If you're a lawyer, you're welcome to call in and discuss it as well. But saying, I want to play a few of the people, Democrats on the committee, making these points to fulfill the elements of this statute here. Here's Ted Deutsch first, who is from Florida. Very good questioning to Mueller, why did Trump want to fire him? And we'll play that clip and explain on the other side. Here's clip number 3, please.
Director Mueller, the most important question I have for you today is why? Director Mueller, why did the President of the United States want you fired?
Oh, I can't answer that question.
Well, on page 89 in your report on volume 2, you said, and I quote, substantial evidence indicates that the President's attempts to remove the special counsel were linked to the special counsel's oversight of investigations that involve the President's conduct, and most immediately, to reports that the President was being investigated for potential obstruction of justice. Close quote. Director Mueller, you found evidence, as you lay out in your report, that the President wanted to fire you because you were investigating him for obstruction of justice. Isn't that correct?
That's what it says in the report, yes. And I stand behind the report.
So what Ted Deutsch there is trying to prove that one of the 3 elements, corrupt intent. That's what he's laying the foundation for. Now, this isn't a courtroom. It's a congressional hearing, but they're doing their best, I think, in a way to convince Speaker Pelosi to get on board for impeachment here. And we won't go through all the details of it, but Donald Trump on numerous occasions endeavored, as the federal statute says, to fire Robert Mueller to stop an investigation into Donald Trump's own criminality. He told Don McGahn, his White House counsel, to do it. He tried to get Karl Lewandowski to go around everyone and do it. So that's why Ted Deutsch said that. Then you have Congressman Cedric Richmond, who talks about that Trump asked some staffers to falsify documents. The same reason, to cover up a story about trying to get rid of Robert Mueller, again, to obstruct justice. Here's clip number 4.
So it's fair to say the president tried to protect himself by asking staff to falsify records relevant to an ongoing investigation.
I would say that's generally a summary.
And again, that's in corrupt intent. The idea Donald Trump was asking somebody to falsify information to protect Donald Trump. It's connected to an ongoing investigation. You've got the elements there for obstruction. There's no doubt about it. And then here's Congressman Val Demings talking about Donald Trump and lying to impede the investigation of Robert Mueller. And again, this is quintessential obstruction, and she's making the elements for that. Here's clip 5.
It is fair to say then that there were limits on what evidence was available to your investigation of both Russia election interference and obstruction of justice.
That's true, and it's usually the case.
And that lies by Trump campaign officials and administration officials impeded your investigation.
I would generally agree with that.
So you just heard Robert Mueller testify that the lies by the Trump officials directed by Trump were to impede the investigation into Donald Trump. So this is not a game. And I think because the legalese and it's wonky and they're reading from a report, it didn't seem, and Robert Mueller himself is lower energy than people might want. They wanted a whole showman there. But it's very, very clear. He laid out elements of obstruction of justice. It's a felony, each of the counts. Each one is separate on 3 to maybe 4 different places. In fact, on Monday's show, we had Elliot Williams, a former federal prosecutor who worked in the Department of Justice, and he laid out 4 crimes he viewed at that point from obstruction that Donald Trump had fulfilled based on the report. And all the testimony today was comported with the report or just agreed with the report. And here's Elliot Williams laying that out from Monday on our show. Clip number 8, please.
There are 4 instances of obstruction where Mueller found that the elements of the crime of obstruction of justice were met, right? And so when we speak as lawyers of elements of the crime, it's things that, a prosecutor would have to find in order to, or a jury would have to find to convict someone of obstruction of justice. So here, and those are, number 1, an obstructive act. Number 2, with a nexus to an official proceeding, sure. An investigation. And number 3, with corrupt intent. 4 of the 10 times Mueller found all 3 of those
and what were the 4?
So the 4 were, number 1, the attempt to remove Robert Mueller, trying to get him fired, right? The president tried to get Robert Mueller fired. Number 2, curtailing the investigation, trying to, through an intermediary, trying to get the investigation, the mandate of the investigation shrunk. All right. Number 3, earlier in the hour, I talked about trying to get Don McGahn to deny, this is the White House counsel, trying to get him to deny that they attempted to fire the special counsel. And number 3, dangling a pardon for Paul Manafort.
So that's Elliot Williams, former federal prosecutor, worked for years at DOJ, laying it out as a prosecutor, what he saw with the evidence based on the report. There's no new evidence today, by the way. Today was just the report coming to life, so to speak. And so you have those 4. And then there's one other charge, one that I brought up on the show Monday, that I brought up countless times. And that is Donald Trump's conduct in regards to Michael Cohen and witness tampering. And to me, it fulfills the federal statute, all the elements of that crime are easily fulfilled by Donald Trump's action to Michael Cohen. And it's in the report. I mean, it's laid right out there as a crime where first Donald Trump was saying nice things to Cohen and having his in-between people, their emissaries saying, hey, the boss is thinking of you, do the right thing. And the minute Cohen then works with the prosecutor, he starts attacking not only Cohen as a rat, but his family members, saying, look into his father-in-law. There's no good faith basis to bring that up. That is witness intimidation. Your goal there is to get a witness not to cooperate any longer with the government. That is a federal statute. Now, Jamie Raskin, this is a little longer clip. And then after this, we'll take a break and then we'll just take calls for the rest of the show. Here's Jamie Raskin on this very issue of witness intimidation. Jamie Raskin is a con law professor, really smart guy. He's been on the show before. We're trying to get him on next week. And here's Jamie Raskin laying out first the federal statute, the penalty involved for just this count alone, and then a little bit, because I don't want to play like a 5-minute clip, it's a shorter clip, on how Donald Trump violated this federal statute. Here's clip number 6.
A 4th episode of obstruction of justice in the form of witness tampering, which is urging witnesses not to cooperate with law enforcement, either by persuading them or intimidating them. Witness tampering is a felony punishable by 20 years in prison. You found evidence that the president engaged in efforts, and I quote, to encourage witnesses not to cooperate with the investigation. Is that right?
That's correct. And you have a citation?
I'm page 7 on volume 2.
Thank you.
Now, one of these witnesses was Michael Cohen, the president's personal lawyer. After Cohen's guilty plea, the president suddenly changed his tune towards Mr. Cohen, didn't he?
I would say I rely on what's in the report.
Well, he made the suggestion that Cohen family members had committed crimes. He targeted, for example, Cohen's father-in-law and repeatedly suggested that he was guilty of committing crimes, right?
Generally accurate.
Okay. On page 154, you give a powerful summary of these changing dynamics. And you said, I'm happy to have you read it, but I'm happy to do it if not.
I have it in front of me. Thank you.
Would you like to read it?
I would.
Can you read it out loud to everybody?
I would be happy to have you read it out.
Okay, very, very. We'll read it at the same time. The evidence concerning this sequence of events could support an inference that the president used inducements in the form of positive messages in an effort to get Cohen not to cooperate, and then turn to attacks and intimidation to deter the provision of information or to undermine Cohen's credibility once Cohen began cooperating.
I believe that's accurate.
Okay, and in my view, if anyone else in America engaged in these actions, they would have been charged with witness tampering. We must enforce the principle in Congress that you emphasize so well in the very last sentence of your report, which is that in America, no person is so high as to be above the law.
And Chairman Elijah Cummings said the same thing tonight in a press conference, that if anyone else, if it was Donald Trump, was anyone but president, he would be charged. So there you are. You have 3 to 4 counts of obstruction of justice and a separate one, even though Jamie Raskin lumped it in together, a separate federal statute for witness intimidation. But at the same time, when you hear them reading this report, it's not moving. It's not compelling. It's legal. As a lawyer, I mean, Jamie Raskin, this is a very compelling thing you said here. And he reads the report. If you're not a lawyer, it's not compelling. Like, it's inferences, reasonableness, blah, blah, blah. That's the whole problem with the first part, the first testimony. For me as a lawyer, extremely compelling. I thought it was remarkable. But then again, I have read the report, and I had read that. And I made the same point. I read this on Monday, this part where the report, the same part that Jamie Raskin read, where Mueller wrote in his report, there's evidence to support the inference the president intended to discourage Cohen from cooperating with the government because Cohen's information would shed adverse light on the president's campaign. Inferences, support, discourage, not the most exciting stuff. But you got it, like a mob movie. He's threatening the guy's family. He's got the power of the federal government. He's like, if you work with, someone should investigate your father-in-law if you cooperate. That's the message he's sending. And the final thing, and this was sort of an afterthought, but a Republican congressman, Ken Buck, asked the question and got this answer, which has kind of gone viral and really has pissed off Donald Trump about being charged with crimes after he leaves office. Here's clip number 7.
Could you charge the president with a crime after he left office?
Yes.
You believe that you could charge the president of the United States with obstruction of justice after he left office?
Yes.
And Donald Trump we'll play it later. Donald Trump was asked about that. Could he be charged afterwards? And he went ballistic. So I don't care how the right's going to spin it. It means nothing to me. What we saw today, and I'll come back, we'll take your calls. Then we'll talk in the second hour all about the Russian interference and Donald Trump and what he accepted, what the Russians did, why they did it, and how they're still doing it right now, as Robert Mueller testified. And Donald Trump is doing nothing to stop it. And that is stunning. But I'd love to get your view on, do you think what's your reaction to what we've heard just on the obstruction? Did it move you any way? Did you find it compelling? Do you think coworkers or friends who heard bits of it, were they moved at all? Speaker Pelosi's made it clear just a short time ago. I'll just read what she said. She said that my position has always been whatever decision we make in that regard regarding impeachment would have to be done with our strongest possible hand, and we still have some outstanding matters in the courts. She's right, they're still in the courts. I think she's wrong on the idea of waiting for the courts. That's different. So let's take a break, come back. You're my guest. I really want to hear from you. It's a big day. You are the pundit. You're the one on here telling us your takeaway, good or bad, from what we saw today. 866-997-4748. Be right back after this. At this point, the question is not who connected to Donald Trump as a criminal. The question is anyone connected to Donald Trump who's not a criminal?
The Dean Obeidallah Show. Sirius XM Progress.
longer.
I have never long said that. I have.
Because Republicans moving forward with an impeachment inquiry because Republicans controlled the Senate. It's going to die in the Senate. Is that no longer?
I have never long said that. I have never long said that. If we have a case for impeachment, that's the place we will have to go. The fact that why I'd like it to be a strong case is because it's based on the facts and the law. That's what matters, not politics, not partisanship, just patriotism. I don't care. I'd like the Senate to be responsible and honor their oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution, to see the challenge this is to our national security, that the Russians trying to do to our country. But the stronger our case is, the worse the Senate will look for just.
His show, your voice. 866-99-SIRIUS. 866-997-4748. Let's make a difference together. This is the Dean Obadala Show.
On Sirius XM Progress 127.
And welcome back, Dean Obadala Show. We're live Wednesday, July 24th, taking your calls. And one quick thing before I get to the calls. I just want to say the Republicans' reactions in the first set of hearings, in the Judiciary Committee hearings, were abysmal in what they did to Robert Mueller. They literally called him a liar. One called him un-American. Robert Mueller served in the U.S. Marine Corps. He was a U.S. attorney, served as FBI director twice, and was called un-American. It is so pathetic that the GOP has become more loyal and more patriotic to Donald Trump than the United States of America. Because that's what we saw today. They were not concerned about Russia attacking our elections. They were concerned about protecting Donald Trump at all costs. They didn't care that he obstructed justice, tried to get in the way of it, that he's lied. They didn't care about any of that. They care about one thing, supporting their supreme leader. And look, there's always been partisanship, but this is off the charts. This is unreal what's going on. Doesn't matter if it's racism, when last week only 4 Republicans voted to condemn Donald Trump's racist comments. And by the way, a poll came out today, and of Democrats and independents, over 70% thought Trump's comments and the send her back chant was racist. Guess how many Republicans? About 25%. Only 25% thought it was racist, which shows you we do not share their values. We really don't. This is a values fight. And whoever wins this fight will define what American values are going forward. Because we all know, as Democrats and independents, we know what it is. And about 25% of Republicans understand that saying send her back about a woman who's black back to Africa is racist. But 75% of the GOP have no problem with it. And we don't share their values. We share the same land, but we don't share their values. And the same thing here, the attacks, the Republicans in Congress more concerned with protecting Donald Trump than Russia attacking our election was one of the most unpatriotic displays I've ever seen as an adult who loves politics, who's watched politics all the time. And I can't believe I'm saying this stuff because it sounds like crazy things from the other side. But this is where we're at right now. This was about a Russian military attack on our election in 2016, and there was not a squawk of concern in the first set of hearings. The first hearings in Judiciary. In Intel, they were more measured. It was better there. Judiciary, horrible, horrible stuff. It was just protect Trump, protect Trump, protect Trump. Demonize Robert Mueller, a U.S. military veteran. But that's what they do on the GOP. Look at Trump as demeaned John McCain, a POW, mocked him, and they're still fine with that. The GOP has become the most disrespectful to our military and veterans and POWs than I've never seen any group more disrespectful to them than the GOP now. And that's what the GOP, that defines them. And we must define them as that. That's why Trump projects this patriotism garbage on us. We are the patriots. We're the ones fighting for the values of this nation. And let's take some calls before I just talk all day because I'm angry again. Here is Elizabeth in Texas. Elizabeth, how are you?
Hi, Dean. I'm fine. How are you?
Fine. So what are you thinking after what you saw? I don't know if you watched the whole thing, parts of it, you saw clips, whatever. What do you think?
Yeah, most of it. Judiciary, most of the 2-1s, or some parts of the 2-1. I'm so upset about how deferential all of law enforcement, FBI, everybody is to the Republicans. I mean, personally, it's like, they are the masters and we are the slaves. It's always like, Obama could never do this. Obama could never do this.
Right.
But, you get
right.
Robert Mueller, and he's like carefully looking at every damn word to make sure that he doesn't say anything negative about this unindicted co-conspirator. And in the meantime, just like comparing to what Comey did, and we're always deferential to the Republicans. Even like with Comey, my husband didn't remember this, but he made a promise to the Republican Congress that if anything new came out about the Hillary email scandal, he would be sure to let them know.
Right.
And
yes,
then, days before the election,
10 days before,
and FBI was leaking like crazy, and he had to write his little letter to make sure he was a good boy. In the meantime, these assholes are ignoring subpoenas. And it's just, as I said, who's the boss here? It's always
we're not the boss.
To watch them pussyfoot around, Mueller. It's like being so careful. Oh, I can't say anything negative about Trump or any of these people because it hasn't been. He's careful as can be, and yet they just rake any Democrat through the coals that they can. And
they do.
And as I said, it's gonna go on for the election too, because they'll cheat like hell. These Republicans, when they look at what the Russians did, it's not bad. It's a high five. It's like, yay, baby!
Right.
We did it anyway, anyhow. That's their code.
We're going to talk about it more in the second. I want to play some clips about Robert Mueller warning us what is going on right now. Literally, as he sat there, he said that. And the Republicans, except for Will Hurd, and there actually are handful of reasonable Republicans was on that committee who was good. But Elizabeth, the frustration you have, Robert Mueller's a lifetime Republican. I think he was going there as a straight shooter and as someone sort of constrained by DOJ regulations, even though he no longer works there, was doing what he should do. The Democrats, I don't know what more they could have done today, but I know what they could have done 6 weeks ago is that's call for an impeachment inquiry. And I know what they could do now, tomorrow, is call for an impeachment inquiry in the House Judiciary Committee and have a vote. And I have no doubt it would pass and the impeachment inquiry would begin in the House Judiciary Committee. So to me, that's where my frustration lies. They've got to start that.
Yeah, but, I don't know. It's just not enough because we play by rules and they don't. And it's, it's just shameful. Lying is fine with them, And
lying, accepting help from a foreign government is fine with them. Personally profiting from your office in the White House is fine. Sexually assaulting a woman and calling her a liar is fine. Banning transgender Americans from our military is fine. Demonizing Muslims, Latinos, immigrants, that's all fine for them. That's what I tell you. We don't share their values. I'm not being hyperbolic. Do you share the values of someone who fits that picture that Trump is about and his supporters? We just don't. And the question is, whose values will win in 2020? Because whoever does will define American values for the near term, or maybe even longer than near term. That's what this is. This is a values fight. This is really about what do you believe the United States of America stands for? It's cruelty and bigotry and racism and sexism. You got Trump. If you do not, you reject all of that. You celebrate compassion, diversity, the idea this country is from many one. If you believe that, that's us. You're on our side. It could not be more clear. So, all right, Elizabeth, I want to try to get some more calls in tonight because it's a big news night. But thank you, Elizabeth. Thanks for your call. I appreciate it. All right, here is Todd in Indiana. How are you, Todd?
Hey, good evening, Dean. Anything that might have been gained by the Democrat Party today was negated by Nancy's horse shit. I don't
which horse shit is this
I'm
one?
sorry,
Todd.
I've never swore on your show or
It's okay.
anybody else's show, but the crap coming out of her mouth.
Tell me
is
what
as
specifically.
vile.
Give us an example. I have a clip where she said something just a short time ago, which we could play. But go ahead. You tell me.
I heard it over the air before you came on.
Okay, with Michael. Yeah.
She says she's not playing politics. Bullcrap. If she is, your guest on there earlier said that she is being responsive to her caucus.
Yep.
She is not responsible to her caucus. She is responsible to her constituents. This nation was not set up as the citizens being responsible to Congress. Congress is responsible to the citizens. And as far as I'm concerned, she is as much as of a problem in this country than Donald Trump is, because she
Todd, I would go that
let
far.
Go of a history. Well, then tell me why she can't follow through with impeachment inquiry.
Well, here's the one thing, Todd. I mean, the truth, what you're saying about being responsive to your constituents is true. When you're elevated to Speaker of the House, I think you do have a more strategic obligation to look at the big picture. I really do. And right now, it's about 40 members of the House who are Democrats, right? Only a little over 90 have come forward and saying they want impeachment. So we had Congressman Ruben Gallego on, that's who you're quoting, who was on earlier, saying she's responsive to her caucus. We need over 50% of the caucus in the House to say we want impeachment. For her, I don't agree with that, Todd. What I agree with you, poll after poll shows of the base, and that's more important than the caucus, 65 to 81% of Democrats, July 3rd Gallup poll, 81% of Democrats say they support an impeachment inquiry. Why are we, as the grassroots base, ignored? Why are we taken for granted from our leadership? And things have changed. We're no longer, I don't think we're going to do that. I fear some are going to check out. I don't want anyone to check out. If we've got to change the leadership when this is over in 2020, then let's do that. But let's stay focused for now. But Todd, I'm more upset that Speaker Pelosi does not follow the will of the Democratic base, not just the caucus. The caucus to me is different. The base, we know where we are. Polls show that. I'm not making it up. I'm not based on just my callers. From 65 to 81%, every poll I've seen.
If you think Republicans are right now being unresponsive and ignoring subpoenas, wait till November rolls around of this year when they start the McConnell rule. 1 year away from the election. Sorry, we can't do nothing.
Look, it's going to be we're going to see what happens. Let's see how it plays out. I got to go to a break because we've got a lot of breaks. All right, Todd, my friend, nice chatting with you. I don't mind your curses. Okay, if people have passion, you organically curse. That's fine. So I get it, Todd. I feel your frustration towards the Democratic leadership, specifically Speaker Pelosi and Steny Hoyer, who's up there backing her whole time. And they've got to come around because in the second hour, we're going to play a lot of clips on what Russia did and how Trump accepted the help. And that's Robert Mueller's own words. I'll play that for you. And forget this obstruction. Forget analytical legal discussion. When you hear that, and if we don't do impeachment inquiry, we are telling Trump to accept the help of China, North Korea, Russia, and everyone else in 2020 and everybody else. And we can't do that. So, all right, Todd, I got to go to break. Be right back after this.
Dean Obadala Show on Sirius XM Progress 127.